Welcome to the Dirty Mind Podcast. It's a podcast with dirt and my mind. So I am Dirt from the intro. That was me. And what are we going to be talking about today? Fantastic question. You're so intuitive. We're going to be talking about loading screens, which are obviously the pinnacle of video games. That's where video games, they all converge. That's what they all have in common. Except for some, they make it seem like they don't have any loading screens. And some, it's pretty obvious that they have loading screens. It's pretty much just slaps you in the face with a salmon. But that's sort of that's the topic of the day is what the differences are and why are some or most loading screens so boring. And there are quite a few elements as to the whys, the wherefores, and the reasons thereofs. But we'll get into all that. First and foremost, it's time for everyone's favorite segment, Old News.
I got nothing new for you.
Today's old news is, guess what? This is so exciting. Burnout Paradise, the sixth game in the Burnout franchise. Originally, you may remember, it was tentatively called Burnout 5. Now, it might be confusing because it was the sixth game, but it was Burnout 5, but it's not that anymore. It's Burnout Paradise, okay? And it was... I think there was a very small sliver of time where it was going to be called Burnout Valhalla, but forget all that. Burnout Paradise, that's the official name. It's going to be coming out for the PS3 and Xbox 360. Now, in some of the cover art that I believe has already been shared, it looks like it's black and white, but then on the inside of the car, you actually have color. Now, this can be cause for confusion. The game is not black and white, and the cars are the only thing that are able to see color. That's a common misconception. Sorry, I had just a huge glob of peanut butter and honey. The game will still be featuring full colors, like all of the red, all of the green, all of the blue, all of the chartreuse, every color you can imagine, pretty much. It's just sort of like a ploy in the marketing to make it look like the colors are emanating from the cars themselves. It's kind of a complicated. It's sort of like a metaphor. Like the cars are generating life. And I think Pixar is going to take that idea and run with it. But it's not the way the game is going to look. The game is going to have color in it, but it's sort of a mentality when you're driving and playing this game. But it's going to be real great. I think it's going to be worth the wait. It's coming out for, again, PlayStation 3, not the PS2, sorry, and Xbox 360. It's going to be a good time. Keep a lookout. Burnout Heaven? No, Burnout Paradise, sorry. Burnout Paradise. Namaste. Welcome back. So let's get to talking about loading screens and all of the information therein. So we're going to do a little history lesson here. This was one of the first pieces of video game trivia that really made me see the potential for a corrupt nature of video game developers and publishers. In 2015, a patent expired for, I think, Bandai Namco owned this patent for auxiliary games, which were essentially mini games during loading sequences. And the descriptor around that was sort of like if you have a code and a gameplay mechanic that is not directly related to the rest of the game, you can't be using that during a loading screen. And they had the patent, they had that the chokehold on that market. And other games, they were able to figure out how to do something else in the meantime. One of the most famous examples is Assassin's Creed. You were able to just run around as Ezio or whoever in this nice just empty void. And that I really enjoyed that. There's nothing you could do other than sprint, run, jump, twirl your little cape. But hey, it's better than nothing. So I like that. Some other games, Rayman Legends, let's see, FIFA, Bayonetta. A lot of these other games, they were able to do something interesting with the loading screens. But for the most part, loading screens have been quite boring before 2015 and after 2015. You would have thought the floodgates would have been opened as soon as that patent was lifted, and peeps would be just throwing everything against the wall, seeing what sticks during the loading screens. Like you'd have a little sequence that would mimic Pac-Man or a 2D platformer, something real simple that's easy to code, and it keeps the gamers busy. I would have thought you'd be seeing a bunch of that after 2015. But not really. And there's a couple reasons for it, or at least a couple theories for it. Now, the first and foremost, most simplest big brain answer would be that loading times are just too insignificant now. You jump into a loading screen and you're like, okay, we got some time. Let me get my club sandwich out. Oh, I got to get rid of the toothpick in the center. Why would they put an olive on the toothpick? That's so silly. I'm not going to eat the olive. I'm pretty sure I requested no olive on the toothpick of my club sandwich. And then before you're even able to take a single bite, the game is already ready, and you've actually missed 15 seconds of gameplay and you've died twice. So that's part of it, for sure, is the loading times are super quick. However, there is a problem with that theory, and it rhymes with Starfield. So a lot of games still have very significant loading times. And even in the age of SSDs and the internet, you know how the internet used to be just like pregnant snail slow? Not anymore. The internet moves more quickly than it used to. For the most part, I mean, depends on where you live. I was just at my parents' house last night, to be honest. We had some pizza, and it had some green peppers on it. And I was like, oh, this is nice. I don't have green peppers on my pizza very often. But yeah, uh, me old madre, she was like, yeah, we had to go into my office to use the Wi-Fi because the internet here is so slow. And I was like, I can't even imagine a world where I would have to leave my house for better Wi-Fi. No, that's not happening. Not in this economy. I've got an image to uphold, and it needs to be in high definition or 2K if possible. I can't be doing none of that slow internet business. If it takes more than 10 minutes to upload a video, forget it. I'm making a complaint. And I'm not complaining directly to my internet provider. No, I'm jumping over several heads, and I'm going straight to the governor. And I'm saying this is unacceptable. This is dirt, by the way, from last time, from yesterday. This is just unacceptable. This is 21st century business, and you have no reason. Are you going to finish that donut? And that's how most of the conversations go. I don't know why, but the governor, he's always got some type of snack in front of him, or you know what he does? It's not even directly in front of him. It's off to the side. Like in the corner of his desk. And it's like, there's no way Dirt will notice this croissant over here. And it's like, of course I'll notice the croissant. I smelled it from back in the hallway. and he thinks he's being all sly by putting it off to the side, making it seem like, oh, I'm not even interested in this croissant anymore. Maybe it wasn't even a good croissant to begin with. And it's like, Dad, don't play that psychological game, acting like the thing that is obviously important is not important. You need to stop that right now. You need to stop that right now. And I couldn't even remember what my argument was. I don't remember why I walked in the building. It works every single time, and I really have no defense for it. If I see a croissant, everything is gone. All bets are off. Forget about it. If I was getting married that day, forget it. I would have no recollection that I was even in a relationship. Okay? If you dangle a croissant like that so strategically, I don't even know. I think it's time for our sponsored segment. I need a moment. Have you ever wanted to look like you're insightful and intelligent but don't have any evidence to support that theory? Well, you should get one of our patented notebooks. Sorry, I just had a big old glob of honey and peanut butter. You should get one of our patented notebooks that are already filled in. These notebooks are filled in with so many notes on various subjects. They really run the gamut. It's crazy. It's science, okay? Technology, yeah? Geography, history, mathematics. Oh, so many subjects. All of these subjects are randomly scattered into the notebook. There's maybe 3 empty pages in all of the 200 pages here. The rest are filled in with various like handwritten notes and graphs and charts, Venn diagrams. There's so much. It's basically like you take a 6th grade teacher and say, show your work. This is their dream notebook. To see all this information, it's crazy. I guarantee, none of the notebooks you've ever used in your life, none of the notebooks you've ever seen in your life, none of the notebooks you've ever dreamed of in your life. If you're anything like me, you dream of notebooks twice a night. So none of them they don't hold a candle to these notebooks that are filled in with so many detailed notes. Now, it is true, some of them are nonsense. If you look close enough, you'll see that there's a good amount of gibberish going on. But that's okay. They're not going to be looking closely at page 96. They're not going to be looking closely at page 42. You know, the first few pages are very accurate. We put all of our eggs in that basket, you know. So the first few pages and also the last few pages, they're very accurate. They have a lot of stuff, like accurate information about, you know, Alexander the Great, Alexander Graham Bell, the movie Alexander. There's a lot of information in there, and it's accurate, so you don't have to worry about that. There's some math problems that have the solution all written out, where, you know, you show your work, and it's like, well, that doesn't look like a real thing, but they change math every 2 years, so what do I know? So there's a lot of good examples that would support the theory or support the assertion that you would have made that I am intelligent and I take great notes. And here's the proof. The proof is in the pudding. And conveniently enough, that's our company's name, Pudding Notebooks. So get yourself one of these notebooks that is already filled in. You're going to save yourself so much time, and you're probably going to land that job interview at a trampoline park. I guarantee it. Could we put an asterisk next to where I said guarantee it, but in the audio? No? Okay, that's fine. I don't guarantee it, but I guarantee it. Wink. Get one of these notebooks today. Ooh. Welcome back. Let's keep talking about loading screens already. It's the topic of the day, and I can't wait to continue talking about loading screens. So, what would be the solution, Dirt? What would you propose to make loading screens more interesting? Well, First, you have to look at what would be the loading screen necessities. What are the requirements for your particular game? Let's take three different examples and make a little hypothesizing for these. So let's take option number one, which has very quick loading times, which are never more than 10 seconds at a time. Even the game loading up at the very beginning, it's never more than 10 seconds, even on very weak hardware. Okay, that's option number one. Well, what you can do is not put too much effort into the loading screen, not make it something where it's gameplay oriented, just make it visually interesting. You know, instead of having a little arrow with a curve in the corner just spinning, let's actually do something according to the game, right? So if you got a racing game and you want to do something interesting and you have less than 10 seconds, I would have various cars. It doesn't matter what type it is, just have various cars, have a randomly generated which car. Let's say you have 7 different cars in the game. That's not enough cars, by the way. If you're making a game about cars, you should have more than 7 cars. But let's pretend you have 7 cars. At any point, you never know which loading screen is going to be. It'll randomly pick one of those 7 cars, and the car comes out onto the screen, and it starts a burnout. I don't know where I got this idea, but the car burns out, where the tires are spinning, and it's making the smoke, and it's like, you know what burnout sound like. And it's just tearing it up, and it's making the smoke, and all of this stuff is happening. The car's wiggling, and you're like, is it going to go? Is it going to go? Is it going to go? And then 9 seconds have passed, and then and it takes off. And once the car exits the screen, exits screen right, that means the loading time is over. I think that would be awesome because you have this little bit of anticipation, and you're actually watching something happen, and it's going to be a little, that you're going to have to see it maybe 3 times throughout the game if you're playing for an hour. And so it's going to be a little bit different each time. It's probably going to be faster at one point. It's going to be a different car at some point. The sound is going to be a little different. And it's computationally inexpensive because it's just in this void, and it's just one element, so it's not going to hinder the load time. And then you have that little bit of, it's like watching the DVD player icon just bumping from corner to corner, and you really want it to hit the corner perfectly. Obviously, there's no interaction in that other than yelling and throwing popcorn at the screen. So you don't need to worry about it because it's so short. It's just a visual, but that's okay. I think that would be a wonderful thing to look at while you're watching a loading thing. Just waiting for the burnout to complete and fly off the screen. So that's option one, and I think it's a pretty good option, and I'm probably going to patent that because I'm a soulless corporate robot. So option number 2 is you have a medium amount of loading time. So let's say it's going to be more than 10 seconds. It's not quite enough time to scroll through TikTok, because you're not, a lot of these TikToks are like, 7 hours long these days? So you don't have that much time, but you definitely have enough time to justify adding some specific code for this little sequence. Yeah. So I would say the Assassin's Creed type or Splatoon type amount of loading. Splatoon is probably, that's too specific. That's cheating coming up with that one. Splatoon has really cool loading screens because you actually get to do stuff. But that's the idea. You have enough time to do some specific coding. So I would say what you want to do is, again, look at what type of game are you making. And let's say it's a factory It's sort of like Satisfactory, where it's a 3D factory building game. It's a lot of logic and a lot of placement, construction, building, and frustration and breaking your controller over your younger sibling's head, stuff like that. So I would suggest you take the idea of the game and you simplify it and you squeeze it into a different version. So if it's a 3D game like that, you take the loading screen as an opportunity to try out a 2D version, right? So you got a loading, it says loading, but it's all made of pipes, and these pipes are disconnected from each other. So it's a top-down 2D view, and you got your little character, and it's the same as your real character, pretty much, but it's in 2D, obviously. But you can still tell that it's your actual character. I think that would be a nice touch, but that's neither here nor there. So you've got a bunch of scattered pipes all over the place, and you have a beginning to the pipe, and you have an end to the pipe, and it's all disconnected from the letters that make up the word loading. So if you have your little character, you can run around, and there's basically one button. Like, let's say it's X to pick up and to drop. So you walk around, you get a pipe, and you connect it. You connect the L to the O. You connect the D to the I. You connect the N to the G, and all the other letters. There's probably more letters than that in the word loading. And you connect the loading to the actual start and the G to the end. And I would say this is not a requirement to actually load. You wouldn't want to have to do this every single time, but just having the option and maybe having something different so it doesn't necessarily say loading every single time, but maybe just like a little puzzle, a little simple puzzle that follows this general rule. You're trying to get the electricity from point A to point B. And when you do complete that, let's say you still have 5-6 seconds left in the loading time. Well, you have this little sequence where the electricity is going through, and it's like, and it's slowly filling up the pipes, and the pipes are glowing blue. And then it's got a little triumphant music. It's like, you know, a real quick little music stinger, and you've got the loading thing is blanking, and maybe it moves on to another puzzle, or maybe it just keeps glowing, and you can just run around and disconnect it at any point if you wanted to make it to not glow. I think that would be pretty cool. It's something to do. And I don't think it would be that difficult if you got a lot of money to throw around for a 3D factory building game. But yeah, let's consider option number 3 now. Let's say you got Starfield original Skyrim level loading screen times. There are great opportunities. So what Skyrim did is you could actually move these 3D objects, and that's cool. You get to see these 3D objects. You get to see Parthenax, and you get to spin them around in 3D and look at, wow, it's like a sculpture. I could just reach out and touch it and throw a blanket over it and be like, haha, where'd you go? You're in the fort. Oh, there you are. Oh, my goodness, I should have known because of the silhouette. It looks like a dragon underneath a blanket. That was pretty obvious. So you got that option, doing little things like that. But I always really, really enjoyed when the loading screens were just dissolved into the background where you can't even tell. Uncharted is a great series, but it's always obvious when we go to the loading screen because it goes black, and then we have a little coin in the corner, and it's rotating, and then we're done. What I would love to see is in certain games do this. You hide the loading screen in a little bit of a sequence that's not. It's not when you squeeze through the little cave, so you got to go into the entrance of the cave sideways. Oh my goodness. I don't know when this became a cliche, but every time I see one of these caves in real life, I'm like, nope, I'm not doing that because it's going to take 30 seconds, 45 seconds maybe to go through this little sideways entrance to the cave. And that's where you're going to do all the loading. You're trying to hide that from me. Forget it. Forget about it. No, I'm not falling for that. I'm not falling for that again. Not in real life, not in a virtual world, not ever. Maybe in Target. I would fall for that in Target. But there's great opportunities to hide these loading screens in sequences where you can do a lot of background loading. And I really would have thought in Starfield that you wouldn't have needed to do all these loading sequences. Or maybe not even Starfield, but let's just take an example of a game where you have interiors that need to be loaded, maybe Fallout. I don't know why I'm picking on Bethesda. You got interiors that need to be loaded and then exteriors. So anytime you're in an exterior land, the interior is not loaded at all. There's no windows, so you can't see them. And you have to go through a loading screen or a loading sequence of some type to be able to go inside. What you could do is, especially if it leaned into the narrative of that particular game, like I feel like in Fallout, you would want to have some type of mudroom or lobby situation where you have these doors that are like you got like a ventilation system. Like you open the door, it takes a second to open the door. You go in and you have to have this little sci-fi thing where it like sprays you down and it's like, let's get all the contaminants off of you. We know that you went to Dairy Queen. Don't try and fool us. And then the door closes behind you and it does this little alarm thing where it's like wee 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 wee, just a red light spinning around, and it's like, prepare for the vault door to be opened. And the vault door opens really slowly, and now you can progress to the inside. And then all of the loading for the interior happened right there while you were waiting in that room. Or maybe you weren't even waiting. Maybe it's a long tunnel, but it's just not super crazy, but you get to walk the entire time. Maybe there's some loot in there. Maybe that's part of the appeal. There's some loot in there that you can take if it's that type of game where it increases the amount of OCD required to keep everything organized, and it appeals to the nature of ADHD and all that. Maybe there's something to actually do, but it's this in-between world where it's not tough to load that in. And you can say, if you're looking at it from a programming perspective, all right, we got this big, huge open world. I don't want to have that interior already ready to go, even if it's just one hallway. Well, don't have it ready to go at any point. Have it only ready to go when you're right up next to it, when you're about to open the door. And then you can start unloading the outside world, especially when the door closes behind you. Get rid of all the stuff in the outside world that you don't need to worry about no more. And then start loading in the stuff that's on the other side of the interior door. And it really depends on what type of programmers you got, what type of engine you're using, and what you're hoping to accomplish. If it's a situation where the interior of the location is actually, if you look at the 3D landscape of the game, it's actually like underground and 200 feet away. And games will do that. Like Animal Crossing, you think you're actually on the inside of that house when you walk through? No. You're in a black void 3 miles away. It just transports you over there into this other scene. And that's, whatever. It just depends on if you want to go the magical wizarding world of Harry Potter route, where the inside is not actually connected to the outside, or if you want it to be accurate and actually be in that physical footprint. I think there's pros and cons, but you gotta just use your brain box. You gotta come up with creative solutions to all these problems. And I think that really helps the user experience overall, is when you don't rely on, hey, this is the way things have been for a long time, so that's okay. I think you should use every opportunity you got, and thankfully my entire audience is game developers. That's it. You should use every opportunity you got to try something new. Even if it's a step in the wrong direction, at least it's a step, you know? Just get the boots moving. They're made for walking. That's what they'll do. One of these days, these boots are going to step in poo. Oh boy. So, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's time for the lucky color. Ho! Today's lucky color is smaragdine. Smaragdine. It's it's a name, so it's sort of a nice emerald color, and the hex code is 4A9976. That's right, it's 4A9976. A pretty cool color, a very ridiculous name. That was obviously the reason it jumped out at me, and also someone threw my computer monitor in my face. But it's a real cool emerald. I love a good color that's a combination of blue and green. That little window between blue and green, it's filled with some very gorgeous colors. I love it. It's a lot of nature-related colors can be found there. It's a good time. I would recommend, highly recommend. So this was a little bit shorter, I think. It's hard to know if I can trust clocks or not. But this was a topic I was pretty passionate about. Hopefully, it allowed you to really spark some ideas that will not go unquenched. I don't know. But either way, just remember, memories get distorted over time. So write down your good ideas immediately, and don't ever think about bad things ever, and eventually they'll disappear. There's just a little bit of advice for you. Okay, bye everyone. You're so adorable.